Dr. Edward Richtofen, insane, psychopath, Illuminati, 935, and zombies. These words describe Richtofen. Richtofen is one of the most influential characters in the Call of Duty franchise and is the most important character in the zombie storyline. He is in Call of Duty World at War and Call of Duty Black Ops. He is voiced by the very talented actor named Nolan North. Richtofen is forced to slay his own creation with the American Dempsey, Japanese Takio, and Russian Nikolai. He is very rude to them and rarely speaks to them except when he is slaying his zombies or testing on them. He is focused on himself and wants to control the zombies and the world. He will do anything to achieve his sociopathic means. Beware of the Doc. This message was scrawled across the walls of every town under Axis control. Starvation may cripple you, dysentery may wreck you, and gunfire may rip the flesh from your bones, but beware of the Doc. Meet Dr. Richtofen, known affectionately as the Butcher, to his victims as they scream in agony moments before he snuffs out their light. Throughout his career, Richtofen has always been the forefront of torture and information extraction research. Before the war, he was a back-alley plastic surgeon who created an army of monstrous, affluent Weimar socialites that would follow him around and laugh at every joke the genius doctor made. This all fell apart when the Republic fell and the Nazi Party took over. To Richtofen, their values were too moral, too liberal for his liking. He joined the army so he could satisfy his need to watch people die. Slowly. An incurable sociopath, he sees no moral distinction between natural death and murder. The victim is the victim, regardless of how their demise manifests itself. He is a collection of stuffed animals, most of them posed in positions of terror at the instant of their death. That was the bio taken from World at War. Dr. Richtofen, or the Doc, was working with his boss, Dr. Maxis, on creating zombies from dead humans and being able to control them. Maxis was part of the group entitled 935. They were working in a factory named Doris, or the Giant. They used the element 115 from an asteroid that landed in Tunguska. The testing always failed and resulted in them shooting the zombies. They also worked with other scientists, but their funding was being cut. Richtofen was also working on a teleporting device with Maxis, but it was always failing, and he was also working on super soldiers by himself. He was using 115 to test on live subjects to create the super soldiers, and they were named Nikolai Belinsky, Takio Masaki, and an unknown Mexican. When the Mexican died, he used the American name Hank Dempsey on his experiments. Dempsey had been captured by Richtofen when he went to Verrückt to rescue Peter McCain, an agent sent by 935 to observe Richtofen's creations. The experiments brainwashed them, making Tank more aggressive, Takio constantly recite his Japanese proverbs, and Nikolai be functionless without his vodka. Richtofen also helped Maxis create teleporters that ran on 115, but they destroyed everything that went through them. Richtofen and another lab assistant had finally teleported a walnut, but Maxis criticized them for teleporting something too small and that it was not relevant and was no major discovery. Later on, Maxis wanted to create massive power weapons for the Nazis using 115. Maxis created the ray gun, or so we think, and Richtofen created the monkey bomb and the Wunderwaffe DG2, but Maxis always took credit for Richtofen, and Richtofen became angry and wanted to overthrow him and take over his group. Richtofen finally mastered the teleporters and transferred a human subject and teleported him to the MPD, which is an alien device that ran on life essence and drove Richtofen crazy. Maxis had not known about Richtofen's perfection of the teleporter device and continued to work on it without his knowledge. Maxis bought his daughter, Samantha, an influential character, a dog to use as a test subject, but did not tell her that. When he finally teleported the dog, it became the first Hellhound. Samantha walked into the room and realized what happened to her dog, and the dog started to attack her. Maxis backed up with Samantha into the teleporter, and Richtofen executed them, and killed Maxis and teleported Samantha to the moon, where she became trapped in the MPD. Maxis got away, but Richtofen told Group 935 to find him and kill them, and they succeeded. With this, Samantha was in control of the zombies. When Dr. Maxis was found, he managed to make his way to the moon. He apologized to Samantha for what he had done and instructed her to kill all of Group 935, and he was found and shot, as I had said before. Richtofen went to Shinonuma and found a giant 115 meteorite that had landed, similar to the one in Tunguska. He had his 3 test subjects with him. Realizing that Samantha would never stop and her hellhounds would always follow him, Richtofen took them back to Doris, to get the equipment. In the teleporter, Tank Dempsey used the Wonder Waff. It overcharged the teleporter and it time traveled them to Kino der Toten, which was an abandoned theater that Maxis had used to unveil the teleporters. Kino der Toten was also a test area for Group 935. Sometime later, Yuri, a Russian agent, was sent to launch monkeys into space. Yuri then noticed that Matryoshka dolls and teddy bears were spread around Ascension. He used the child, who was Samantha, to trap his superior Gersh in the Gersh device, for Gersh had sent him to the Monkey Project after being too smart for the Gersh device. After Kino der Toten, Richtofen somehow got to Ascension, and they hear Gersh and they set him free from his bondage. In Ascension, we also hear that zombies are taking over the Pentagon, and we also realize that in the Pentagon, the Americans had been trying to create their own wonder weapons, such as the Winter's Howl and other guns. The group is later teleported using the Gersh device to Siberia, where George Romero is making a World War II movie about zombies. He stumbles across documents about Doris and learns about the events that happened. He is, however, turned into a zombie, and the cast is left to fight for their own. They find Richtofen, Dempsey, Takio, and Nikolai trapped behind the door, and they have to free them, and they also have to get the Golden Rod, which was part of Richtofen's grand scheme to take over the world. Richtofen and his super soldiers are then teleported to Shangri-La, where he can get his final piece needed. There they discover recordings of two explorers named Brock and Gary, who find out that zombies were there and that they had been trapped. Richtofen sets them free and had become a hero in Shangri-La, and he also received the focusing stone that helped him control the zombies. Richtofen then takes the group to Area 51 so they can get the 115 needed, and they go to the moon. He discovered that his base had been overrun by zombies, and that once again they had to survive. Richtofen finally creates his weapon of mass destruction, and he discovers that Maxis is in a terminal, who tries to stop him from completing his grand scheme. Richtofen then opens up the MPD and swaps souls with Samantha, gaining total control of the zombies. Samantha, Tank, Nikolai, and Takio are forced to survive on their own while they destroy Earth. That way, Richtofen cannot control all of the world. For what we know, Richtofen is in Samantha's body, controlling all the zombies. Who knows what will happen with him in Black Ops 2? Leave your thoughts below on Richtofen as a character, and I would love to see what you have to say.